Now, I've often talked about Ketu as being a person's black hole. I've talked about it on this channel. I've talked about it in my classes. I've talked about it to just about every client who's ever asked me anything related to the nodes of the moon. And in that regard, in a sense, I was often encouraging people to focus more on Rahu, or the north node of the moon, because it's that point, that mathematical point, that shows us what ideally we have incarnated to specifically focus on, to specifically work on. And yes, that Rahu, that point, will be in a house and in a sign. And so we're meant to think about, what does that sign represent by its innate nature? What is the area of life represented by that house? That's where we're meant to give a lot of our attention, to feel through, to make mistakes, to learn and to grow into the fullness of that house. 10th house, status. 2nd house, wealth and resources. 4th house, emotional stability and happiness. You just look up what the houses mean, and when you see the node in that particular house, whatever the house means with Rahu, that's generally what you are meant to work through, to make mistakes, learn through trial and error, to keep picking yourself up and to keep moving forward as you develop the understanding of that particular house. That's generally what many astrologers, myself included, focus on when thinking about Rahu and Ketu. Not too much has been said from my memory on Ketu, other than calling it a black hole, and I'll describe what that means once more. But Ketu is also considered to be the supreme liberator within the chart. So wherever Ketu is placed is showing us where we're aiming to move away from, to let go of, so that we can embrace Rahu. And I call it a person's black hole because wherever Ketu is placed, one tends to put an excessive amount of attention. That's the thing, that area of life, wherever Ketu is placed. Remember, each house represents an area of life. Each planet represents a particular quality of life. Each sign represents particular energies of our personality, our life path, and so on. And so when Ketu is in one of those points, or one of those areas, or with one of those planets, it's going to show, considering the theory of past lives, that we have put a lot of attention developing that area. If it's in the 10th house, we've spent a lot of attention developing our sense of status and importance. If it's with Mars, we've spent a lot of time developing our willpower, our ability to be logical, our ability to live to high ideals. If it's in the sign of Gemini, we've spent a lot of time developing our mind and our ability to think and our ability to problem solve and our ability to learn through trial and error and have a vast understanding of multiple subjects. And again, each sign, each house, each planet has a particular quality. And so putting Ketu with those things shows a hyper focus on that in past lifetimes. And I call it a person's black hole because individuals tend to want to rely too heavily on those past developments. Now, Ketu is very good because if it is in the 10th house, it does show that you have a capacity and skill sets to possibly be a good leader, to have good status, again, depending on how Ketu is situated. If Ketu is in the 7th house, it shows that you know how to be in relationships. It's easy for you to be in relationships. You can do it. Of course, it depends upon all these other things that we discussed about figuring out how Ketu is functioning. But it puts such an emphasis on it that then you try to define your life through partnerships, other people, 7th house. You try to find all of your satisfaction. You try to define yourself through status, importance, authority, Ketu in the 10th house. You've got it with those positions. But you don't think you do because you're always getting let down, because the black hole aspect is that you're always trying to define yourself through it. And Ketu's trying to push you away from it. It's saying, hey, look, you got this covered. Now go explore something else. But you keep coming back and trying to explore Ketu, and it keeps failing. It keeps blowing up in your face because, again, that liberator of Ketu is saying you've already got it. Just relax. Let it be. Follow Rahu. Go focus on Rahu. Explore wherever Rahu is positioned. Then Ketu will come back into balance. So this is a typical way that we speak to Rahu and Ketu, and why most people push you towards Rahu and tend to indicate that you might need to let go of your attachment to Ketu. Now, what I would like to discuss is that Ketu is a strength that you have. It is a strength that you have. You don't have to prove it to anybody. You don't have to prove it to yourself. It's there. It's the fact that you go around trying to prove it to yourself over and over and over again, or you keep trying to prove it to someone else over and over and over again, that it grows old and stale and finally collapses. So it's important to look to Ketu as your foundation. It's important to look to Ketu to get a sense of, okay, I know that I'm not ever going to have such a deep, profound sense of satisfaction based on where Ketu's placed, but that's only because the goal is to develop more detachment to focus on Rahu. And it's like this. If a person has a solid home life, their parents are well taken care of, their children are well taken care of, and they know that, but they spend all their time fretting and stressing and obsessing. Oh, are the kids okay? Do my parents have enough money? And so on. They never get out the door to go to work, to do their work in this life, to be able to continue to support the children, the spouse at home, the parents, and so on. So that's why it breaks down. So it's a psychological issue, profound psychological issue. And so with Ketu, if we can learn to get a little detachment to look at, okay, where is Ketu placed? What kind of skills does that mean I probably have that I don't need to obsess about anymore? I can trust that. I have to learn to break my attachment to it. It's almost like an obsessive compulsive energy where you can't leave the house without flipping the light, 20 times or something. You eventually have to just force yourself to trust that you turn the light off and go out the door, even though it feels just terrible, like the world's going to end because you didn't flip the switch 20 times. But the more you're able to do that and to trust, because Ketu is a profound planet of faith and trust as well. And most of us have all these difficulties in life, and we go to astrologers because we have very little faith and very little trust. And Ketu is causing us problems, not for the sake of just being problematic, but to encourage us to learn to trust ourselves and our strengths, and to go explore where we don't have strengths, where we have difficulty, where we don't have skills. And that's always Rahu. That's the area you're meant to develop. So when you think about Rahu and Ketu, it's going to, at least I found for most people, take a lot of psychological work, almost to the degree of trying to work through like an obsession and a compulsion, to honor your Ketu, to admit that whatever house Ketu is in, whatever sign Ketu is in, whatever planet Ketu is with, that you've got that. You've worked on it. You don't need to keep obsessing about it. You got to learn to let it go, to let your heart rest a little bit, to trust, so that you can go out and explore these other areas, wherever Rahu is placed, by house, by sign, by planetary conjunction, by cusp, by where it's placed in the Vargas, and so on. And it's scary, and it's hard, and most people don't do it very well. But that's life. Life is about this school of trying to learn and to grow and to not be obsessed with everything that's come before. You always have to keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. You learn, you grow, you move forward. Life continuously changes and moves forward. This is the energy, this is the quality of Rahu and Ketu. And Ketu is a strength, a foundation for you. But it's meant to be solid and teach you to have faith so that you can explore your Rahu, which is not always easy either. But if you try to change your viewpoint of it, look at it as more an exploration, an adventure, so you have to learn to be adventurous. If you don't have a sense of adventure, you're going to be in for it. You're going to have a lot of difficulty. All these things, they're always about life growing, life becoming more adventurous, the plant breaking out of the seed and taking a chance. It might get eaten by a goat, or it might get lucky and grow strong and clear into the sun and make its own flowers and its own seeds. We don't know. Life is full of this kind of uncertainty, and that's what Rahu and Ketu are all about. But we have to do it anyway. If you look at nature, all of the thousands of things that try to live and grow, and all of the hundreds of them that just perish in the process. But life continues, and that's just how our lives are supposed to be. Our bodies, our minds are a part of nature, and by learning to study Rahu and Ketu in this way, you have a better capacity to embrace life itself, and that's the key. Start with Ketu. Learn to embrace it, learn to trust, and then learn to embrace Rahu. Learn to grow into Rahu. Learn to be comfortable making mistakes, falling on your face, getting up and trying again. Learn to be comfortable getting cut down, but trying to stand up again and keep going. That's how consciousness grows and evolves. It's more than just your personality that's at stake here. It's consciousness itself, which is occurring through your body, your mind, your nervous system. And that's the most important thing. That's what it's all about. Consider this whenever you think about or contemplate Rahu and Ketu, and maybe encourage your own astrologers to watch this video before they work on your chart, to help them think a little bit more about what they could say without being textbook about it, or without being cookie cutter, or just pulling out a recipe from a book about Rahu and Ketu.